Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Elam Road podcast, where on today's show we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to have a chat about England following our qualification for Euro 2024 in the week. And also at the end of the show we're going to hear from a Burnley fan about the big game at the G-Tech on Saturday. We're also going to have a chat about the potential England squad and hearing from an Elam Road regular himself, Nile. He's got some strong opinions about this England squad, so I thought I'd bring him in for this episode. Been a while, Niall, mate. How's things?
Things are well. How are you?
Yeah, all good. Busy, but let's just get straight into it because there's quite a lot to get through. The Burnley Joe from Turfcast has given me about 15 minutes, so I'll plug that in at the end of the podcast. So stick around for that. But yeah, like I said before, going to be a little bit different today. Have a little bit of fun during the international break. But yeah, remember, before we get going, guys, if you haven't listened to the podcast before, please do subscribe to our YouTube and Spotify channels. Leave a rating on those both. And also give us a follow on our socials. That's at the Elam Road on Twitter and at Elam Road Pod on Instagram. Right, England. I think we should kind of separate this into three parts because I thought about sort of doing it question by question, but I think going for three parts is definitely a bit more succinct. So let's go selection and games first, kind of dabbling in between those two topics. Then we'll look ahead to Euro 2024, and then also that will kind of intertwine with a bit of chat about Gareth Southgate as well. First of all, and this is a topic that's caused a lot of debate, Gareth Southgate's squad selection. I think there's a couple of obvious ones that we have to talk about. Firstly, I think we'll go with Jordan Henderson. Lots of noise around his inclusion in the squad, made even louder by the boos that he received in England's recent games against Australia and Italy. Niall, first of all, should Jordan Henderson be in the England squad? There's loads to talk about with Jordan Henderson, but should he be in the England squad for you?
I think it's a difficult one. He's not really someone like I really rate, even when he was back in his prime at Liverpool. I think he's obviously someone that's important to the squad in terms of his leadership abilities. Southgate clearly trusts him. In terms of the boos, I just don't agree with it at all. I think, this whole thing about him playing in Saudi, I think there's lots of players playing out there who still play for their international teams. I think also in his position, we're not really blessed with quality there. So I think for the time being, he should be in the England squad because I don't think we have a lot of leaders who've actually won something as well. And obviously he's won the Champions League. He's been in the squad since about maybe 2015, maybe 2015. So he's got a lot of experience behind him. But yeah, I think maybe after the Euros we should kind of try and fizzle him out. But I can certainly see why Southgate keeps on picking him.
Do you not think playing in Saudi has a negative impact on, one, your performance, two, your competitive edge, and three, I mean, to be honest, I don't agree with the booing. I really don't agree with the booing. I don't think any player should get booed playing for England unless they've done something horrendous. But I mean, he really doesn't cover himself with glory in terms of, that's a good football cliche, by the way. I saw a video on Twitter the other day, just that covered himself in glory. But he doesn't cover himself in glory with some of the interviews that he's done. I do want to bring up the Athletic interview that he did with Alan Crafton and David Ornstein. I just think with footballers, when they do these kind of interviews, they should have a little bit of prep before they do it. And some of the answers that he gave in terms of, he heard all this stuff about Qatar before they went, and he didn't see any of it when they were there. It's kind of the whole thing of what sports washing is. And then I think the thing that pissed me off the most was probably when, they asked him, why have you gone? And he said, it's not just about the money. And it's just like, I'd much rather prefer for a footballer to be like, it's about the money. Because the only reason footballers are going to Saudi Arabia, and let's not sugarcoat it, I don't know how you feel about it, but the only reason footballers are going to Saudi Arabia is the money. And he said he did it in another follow-up interview before the game against Italy. And he said, I want to rephrase what I said in the interview. It is in part about the money, but it's not solely about the money. I was just like, just say it's about the money. And the other thing with Jordan Henderson, you kind of alluded to it, he's not a player that's like going to knock his socks off every week. Yes, he's got leadership qualities. Yes, he's been part of winning squads for Liverpool in terms of the Champions League and the Premier League. But I do get your point around how maybe we don't have as many holding midfielders per se as we do attacking midfielders or sort of English midfielders that we could deploy in an 8 or a 10. We're quite limited in terms of sixes. But it kind of leads on to the next point about what I'm going to ask you about sort of Calvin Phillips and whether he gels into the squad. But anyway, so you're saying playing in Saudi shouldn't negate his his credentials for England?
It is I can understand your point of view. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you should judge a player off his performances, not in the league he's playing in. So, for example, Brentford, we're known for our scouting, and we look at a player's performance, not the league they're playing in, right? Because you can only do so well against what's in front of you. So if he's performing well in Saudi, I have no problems with being in the England squad.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a fresh take. I think a lot of people disagree. I don't really see what he offers to the team, but I just feel like with Southgate, and we're going to talk about Southgate, he will carry on playing him because he does have his favourites. Calvin Phillips. I've seen your 1 to 11. We are going to do a 1 to 11 at one point. You've got him in your 1 to 11. He's played next to no minutes for City since joining them last year. He looked pretty shaky last night. He was on a mission to get himself sent off from minute one, I thought. He went flying into a tackle within the first 20 seconds, then got himself booked about a minute later. Lucky to stay on the pitch because he had another one in the second half that he should have got yellow for, but for some reason the Italy player got yellow for. Same question, are you putting him in the squad? Because it's another point of contention. It's like we're putting Henderson in the squad even though he's playing in a lesser league. We're putting Phillips in the squad even though he's playing in the Premier League, but he's played basically no minutes. I read a stat the other day that he started as many games for England as he has for City since he joined City, which is just ridiculous. And the fact that Rico Lewis gets a nod ahead of him in that game against Arsenal a couple of weekends ago kind of says it all about how Pep doesn't really fancy him. But go on, you go. Calvin Phillips, what's your take on him?
Again, I think it's obviously a bit similar to the Henderson situation. I think when he's played for England, he's always done quite well. I actually think he played pretty well last night as well, despite him probably should have been sent off.
Yeah.
I think Henderson and Phillips are lucky that we're not blessed with good holding midfielders, and Southgate likes to play with a double pivot or two DMs. And I just can't. I don't know who else there would be apart from Phillips and Henderson. Another player that comes to my mind is Harrison Reed. Right? I really rate him, honestly.
That's a Tias shot, that.
He'd be in the squad if I was the manager.
Harrison Reed?
Yeah, 100%. I think he's a good player. But it won't happen. Phillips played well for England every time he's played for us. I think he probably will move on in January, whether it's a loan or permanent. So I'm sure we will see him a lot more in the Premier League after January. And yeah, if he plays well, I've got no problem with him playing, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with him playing as long as he makes the move in January where he can get first team football, because I feel like I was watching the game last night and he didn't do too much wrong. Maybe I'm being slightly harsh, but I was watching the game last night and he just looked like someone who hadn't played a lot of minutes this season, which he hasn't. But like you say, unlike Henderson, he has been a standout performer for England, especially at the Euros. Wasn't he England's player of 2020 to 2021? I'm pretty sure in the men's team. So he's done so well, and he was really good at the Euros. And I wouldn't have any qualms with him starting at the next Euros, but only if he makes that move to a different club, because at City he's just not getting the minutes, and you don't want someone who's playing every time he gets called up for the international team but doesn't have any match fitness when it comes to playing at club level. Speaking of, Harry Maguire played okay last night. I thought he always somehow manages to pull it out of the bag when he has a big crunch game for England. I feel like with his performances in the last international break against Scotland, in particular when he came on as a sub, kind of scapegoated, as he normally does get scapegoated with England. And I put some stick on Southgate saying, he's responsible for as much as the criticism that Maguire gets, as Maguire is himself for not playing up to scratch. He played okay last night, but I think now, in terms of the centre halves coming through that we have, and I think we should sort of say as well, in terms of England, I feel like there's one position or maybe two positions, you could argue maybe with the goalkeeper, that we don't have a world-class player of sorts, and it's that left-sided centre half, because I think the right-sided centre half goes to John Stones when he's fit. But in terms of that left-sided centre half now, we've got the likes of Mark Gurhey, Lewis Dunk, Levi Colwill, who I know we've both got in our 11s. But Harry Maguire, Euro 2024, what do you think?
Again, he's one of them players that's not really let us down. And you know what? I think I actually do like Maguire as a player. I think he's obviously had a lot of criticism recently. and that's bound to get to him. Obviously, with his performances, he hasn't been playing too well for Man United, although I think he played well against us, Brentford, a couple of weeks ago. And he's not had a bad game for England either. And I think when you're playing in a tournament, experience is so important. When you look back to his performances at the World Cup in 2018, Euros in 2021, World Cup, what was it, almost a year ago now, I think he's been pretty solid for us. And these players are important, you know. I know I had Colwell in my team, but obviously he's far less experienced. Not played as many games as Maguire in the Premier League. I think that stuff doesn't count. Does count quite a lot when Southgate is picking his selection. But the thing is that I also don't like two right-footed centre halves. I want one right-footed, and obviously the left centre half being left-footed. So yeah, I think it is a difficult one, but yeah. I would also like to see how well he does for the rest of the season. Obviously, there's a long way to go. A lot can change. You know, Colwell could get injured, be out for 6 months. Same with Maguire. Or Maguire could come into the Man United team, play really well. You just don't know at this stage of the season, to be fair. But yeah, I think at the moment, Maguire just about deserves his spot in the England team.
I'm not sure. I don't know if I can agree with you now. I really don't. I think, especially with how little he's played, he's similar to Calvin Phillips in a sense. Especially with how little he's played, I just feel like maybe just give him a little bit of a break. If he doesn't break back into this Man United team, I don't want him to go into the Euros as a starting centre-back without any first-team football under his belt. Whereas if you go back to 2018 Russia and 2020 Euros, he had full seasons at Man United and he was really good. He was one of our best players in terms of those tournaments. But you're talking about him going into the biggest tournament in recent years in terms of, you know, the general consensus amongst England fans, and you can call it entitlement, you can call it whatever, but I think the general consensus is we need to go into this tournament thinking that we can win it. And with the squad that we have, I don't think that's beyond the realms of possibility at all. I think we're definitely one of the favourites, and I wouldn't want one of my starting centre-backs going into that team having not played, 90 minutes week in, week out for his club. Whereas someone even like Mark Guehi, I think he's been amazing this season. I think he's such a good player. He's done really well when he's been called up for England. Again, the same with Lewis Dunk and Levi Colwill. You mentioned, who I think can play out. I think I don't know if I'm wrong in saying that he plays on the left side of the defence for Chelsea, but he can play out from the back. He's just won the under-21s Euros with England. He's been one of Chelsea's best players this season. And I was listening to a podcast on The Athletic the other day, and the Chelsea journalist was saying he's been one of Chelsea's standout performers in what's been a pretty average start to their season. I know they've started to get off the ground now, but in terms of their standout players, Levi Colwill has been one of them. I know Southgate has his favourites, and it kind of all of this England chat always just does go back to Southgate and what he would do, because we know what he's going to do. He will pick Phillips, he will pick Henderson, he will pick Maguire. So like in a way, there's no fucking point in us doing this podcast. But we know what he's going to do. But I would just love to see someone else take that left centre half position and kind of make it their own. I feel like in Guehi and Dunk and Colwill, we've got three more than capable centre-backs that can do that, and just give Maguire a break. Like, I know you said he's not played bad in tournaments, and he hasn't, but he has had some howlers in international friendlies in recent times.
I think the thing is, it's probably a good thing we qualified yesterday, because it gives us the chance to kind of experiment in the next couple of fixtures in the qualifiers. I know Southgate said yesterday he wants to top the group, and while that is important, we are playing Macedonia and Malta.
Mm-hmm.
I'd definitely like to see a couple of players rested, and potentially the likes of Colwill, Guehi, Dunk maybe as well. Play a couple of games.
Don't rate Dunk?
It's not that I don't rate him. I feel like maybe the other options are a bit more exciting, if you like. Like Dunk's a 31-year-old. Kind of want to see the next generation of England players coming through, like Colwill, Guehi. So no, I think it's definitely a time to experiment, see what they can do.
Bellingham. I think we kind of talked about these fringe players, people that we're not going to go on the plane, people that are going to go on the plane. Bellingham, just every time I watch this guy, Real Madrid, England, when he was at Dortmund, every time I watch him, it's just like, wow. I just cannot believe. You go because I've got loads to say about Bellingham. So you go, take it away. He's unreal. There's no. Is he one of the best in the world at the moment? I mean, in terms of midfielders, is that too premature?
No, I don't think so. I think since he's gone to Real Madrid, he's definitely taken it up another level. At Dortmund, when he played for England, I thought obviously he's been a great player, but I feel like the game against Scotland, obviously yesterday, he really, really took it up another level. Yeah, it's just exciting. Like he's 3 years younger than me. He's 4 years younger than you.
I know.
It's just scary. Like, and also just when he speaks, I watched an interview with him after the game, and he's a leader, isn't he? I think it's so exciting. I love the fact that he's gone to Real Madrid and not come to the Premier League. I think also going to Dortmund at such a young age as well shows his maturity. I think young players moving abroad is always a big thing, especially for English players, because it's not really been done that often before. So yeah, it just shows the type of guy he is. I think it's just scary to think what he'll look like in 5 years' time. I think the only worry would be injuries, because he's played a lot of games at his young age, and we've seen in the past players like Wayne Rooney, Theo Walcott, they kind of fizzled out after a while, but just because they played so many games. Obviously, I hope that doesn't happen to Bellingham. I think we need to also kind of protect him in a way. I think the next kind of international round of fixtures, do we really need to call him up? Like, we should be thinking about resting these players like Kane, Bellingham, because we know they're going to play. And I think we should look to kind of experiment in these positions, see what the likes of Ollie Watkins and other central midfielders, what they can do. Maddison, but yeah, Bellingham's amazing, and I'm so excited to see what.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you bring up with how many games that he's played, because it wasn't last week we saw Eden Hazard retire at the age of 32, and he was, in my opinion, one of the best, if not one of the best players to ever play in the Premier League. And there's a lot of people talking about player welfare. There's so many games. Bellingham's played so many games already at only 20 years old. But I just feel like with him, it's just the way he carries himself on a pitch, like his stature. He's only 20 years old, but he's a big guy. He's a big guy, and he seems robust as well. And just that, like the way that people talk about him, the way that Carlo Ancelotti has talked about him, saying that he's we heard about this kid before he came, and somehow like he's only 20 years old, but he plays like he's a 30-year-old. He's the complete player already, and he's only 20 years old. He scored like 9 goals in 11 games or something like that for Real Madrid. I think I read a stat the other day that he's the highest contributing non-striker in Europe's top 5 leagues in terms of goals and assists. And honestly, yesterday he was in the first like sort of 20 minutes when Italy were on top and were playing better stuff. He was the only one on our team that looked any good, and he was the only one trying to make things happen. He's just one of those players that can just pick up the ball and drive when no one else is having a good day. He just picks up the ball and decides, right, I'm going to go on a run now, and he'll get past 3 players, or he'll win a foul, or he'll win the penalty like he did. He's just incredible. Honestly, I don't think I was watching kind of clips of Steven Gerrard when he was kind of this age earlier, when I was kind of doing the prep for this. I just think he's better. I don't want to say this, right? This is outlandish claim, but when he signed for Madrid and he put the number 5 shirt on, I was kind of thinking to myself, do you know what? Out of the stuff how I've seen him play, he kind of does remind me of Zidane a little bit. His first touch, the way he can turn, the way he can get out of tight spaces. And I know that is a bold claim. Like, I'm definitely clipping this up for Instagram, but he does kind of have that build. The way he's kind of a little bit lanky but strong, and just the way his aura on the pitch. I just feel like when he plays, when he gets on the ball, you can hear the crowd get up and they're excited about it.
I think he's almost too perfect, isn't he? Like, he's also he's good looking as well.
There's nothing he can't do. I could rave about Bellingham for ages, but let's get the squads out. We're going to do a 1 to 11. Obviously, we'll do a little explanation of each. I'll let you go first, and I will also get these edits on the screen. So Nile, just point up like that, and I'll get the edit on the screen right now for you to. There you go. And that'll be up because I can't really tell where it's going to be when I come to the edit, because it's like that right now, but in the edit it's going to be like that. Anyway, tell me, go for your 1 to 11, and give me a little explanation after each one.
So, Pickford in goal to start off with. I think that's an obvious one. He's played so well for England over the years. Really rate him. I think the right back positions where it gets tricky. Walker, for me, is probably the best right back in the world right now. Seems to be getting faster with age. I don't know how that's possible. I think he's what, 32, 33 years old, something like that. Um, but then on the other hand, I think Trent Alexander-Arnold's one of our most talented players. I think he's a very he's obviously very good on the ball. I do have my questions about him defensively. I'd say games where we're having more of the ball, I'd probably have Trent Alexander-Arnold, maybe even going into that midfield position to sit alongside Rice. But I think games where, say, if we're playing France or Argentina, I'd have Walker there any day just because of his kind of recovery pace. As for the right side to centre half, I think we both said John Stones.
Yeah.
What a player he is! Played so well for Man City last season. I know yesterday was his first start this season. Left side, this is what we talked about earlier as well. Right now, I'd probably go for Maguire, but if Colwell was to have an immense season, I wouldn't have any problems picking him. Left back Shaw, I think he's very underrated actually. I think obviously it's between him and Chilwell. I think Chilwell's injured right now, so does Shaw. But yeah, Shaw's played so well for England. Obviously scored in the Euros final a couple of years ago. And then the midfield for me is very tricky because I don't know if I want us to play. Obviously Southgate's going to play the double pivot. If it was me, I'd probably be a bit more brave. I'd probably play Rice as the 6. Although I don't really trust him entirely playing as that lone 6. I'd rather have a controller there, like a Rodri or if we go back a few years, like a Michael Carrick would have been perfect in that position. We had Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, of course, and then see if we're playing against the Leicester team, I'll probably put Maddison in there. I think he's one of them players that can just produce something out of nothing. He's someone who doesn't shy away from the ball. I think those kind of players are so important in international football. Just the players who can produce something out of nothing, because in club football, all these teams that have their systems and it's all being put together in training. In international football, everyone always says we don't have like a great style of play, but these things don't happen overnight. Southgate has 3 international breaks, which are probably like a total of 6 weeks with the players, from September up until November. It's not a long time, and playing styles take time to be put into place, and that's why I think Maddison's important, because especially on the international stage where you kind of rely on that individual brilliance like Argentina did in the World Cup, like with Mbappe for France. So I think that kind of play is important. I think Saka on the right, definitely. We all know what a player he is. Done so well for England recently. On the left, I think in bigger games where we're expected to have less of the ball, I'd have Rashford. In games where we're expected to have more of the ball, I'd have Grealish. My reason being is because I don't really trust Rashford. Against a low block, I don't think he's great. I think he's at his best when there's space to run into. But with Grealish, if we're playing against a low block, he kind of attracts players towards him because of his dribbling abilities, and kind of creates space for other players as well to run into. Our central player Bellingham likes to go forward, and then Saka on the right as well. So then obviously Kane up front. And the reason why I think Southgate goes for that kind of 2 holding midfield players is because Kane likes to drop deep. If we had a more advanced midfielder in there, alongside Bellingham, like Maddison, I think it would get too kind of congested in the central areas. So yeah, I'd have Kane in there, and yeah, I think that's pretty much my starting 11.
All right, I'll go through mine, and then we'll kind of go back and go over the points of contention. I think Pickford in goal is, to be honest, I was thinking about this earlier. The thing that would make me choose Pickford over Ramsdale because I don't think Pope's really in the conversation about starting. Don't think he's good enough with the ball at his feet, and yeah, I think with the way that modern goalkeepers are, he's just not good enough on an international stage. Even the games that I've watched Newcastle so far this season, he always makes me feel a little bit nervous. But in terms of what Pickford can do and what Ramsdale can do, I actually think Ramsdale's a better shot stopper than Pickford. I think he's better than Pickford with his feet as well. So the only reason that I would still pick Pickford over Ramsdale, and even though it's very close, is because Pickford has been so good for England since Russia to now. Like he's never let England down. You could argue that maybe he was at fault for Tchouameni's goal against us in the World Cup in Qatar. I mean, would Ramsdale save that? It's easy to say that he might have, but I just feel like, especially with the way Southgate is to his favourite players, I don't think this is Pickford's position for the next tournament at least, and the next World Cup as well. Right back, I'm going Walker, the same as you. I think there is a shout for Reece James, but just he's made of glass. Like the bloke's never fit, so it's just not going to happen. And like you say, Walker's like a fine wine; he just gets better with age. Stones, I always love the quote that Guardiola says about Stones when he was like in that press conference. I can't remember if it wasn't last year, maybe the year before, when he kind of says, "Trust me, John Stones has more personality in him than like everyone else in this room combined," or something like that. And I just think it's a great quote. You wouldn't really expect it. I didn't really expect that. John Stones coming from Barnsley then to Everton, I never really expected him to be that guy. But I feel like when he has played for England and when he's played for City as well, like it's not crazy to say that he's up there with some of the best centre halves in the world. Maybe he's not like a Ruben Diaz, Emerick Laporte kind of level, but I feel like he is. He's definitely like maybe he's at the next table. I'm going Levi Colwill, left centre back, for the reasons I said earlier at the top of the show. I think fantastic for England under 21s. He's been great for Chelsea this season, and I just feel like in terms of how England will play at this World Cup, dominating the ball, playing out from the back, I trust Colwill a lot more than I trust Maguire, especially if Maguire isn't playing week in, week out for United. I think Shaw picks himself. He's one of Southgate's favourites as well, which sadly now that he's injured, Rico Henry's definitely getting nowhere near the squad, but I feel like Shaw, when he's fit, is one of the best left backs in the world. And this is what I mean, we'll get onto it later. We've got so many good players in most positions on the pitch. Centre mid, I've gone like you. I would like to go brave, but Southgate won't. But I've gone Rice as a holding midfielder as the 6, and I go. Thing is, Bellingham's been playing as a 10. Really, he was playing as a 10 last night. He's been playing as a 10 for Madrid, so it kind of just does mix things up a little bit. But I reckon you could probably afford to have 2 8s as opposed to an 8 and a 10. With Bellingham, he's kind of up and down. If you wanted that creative spark, which is something that you get from someone like Phil Foden, who would probably be my first choice in terms of that other 8 role, just ahead of Maddison. I don't think Maddison is one of Southgate's favourites. I don't think he will be one of Southgate's favourites. When he's played him on the wing, and he hasn't quite done it for England yet. But I mean, if he keeps playing for Tottenham the way he's playing at the moment, for me, he's been the player of the season so far. Like in terms of Tottenham's success so far, it all comes through James Maddison. But yeah, it would be so Rice, Bellingham, and then either Foden or Maddison. But at the moment, I'd probably just have Foden ahead, just because I think him and Bellingham, maybe even Foden ahead of Bellingham in terms of like natural talent and ability on the ball. Just Foden is just silky. Like, I rate him so highly. I don't think he should be using the wing. He should definitely be in that sort of more advanced role in between the midfield and the attack. Left wing, I've gone with Grealish. I can see the Rashford argument, but I think it's a weird one with Grealish because I feel like he hasn't really nailed down his England spot, and this season with Man City, he hasn't featured that much for them either. So I don't know what's happening there, because kind of Doku's like coming off the bench and he seems to be like the guy that Guardiola is either going to start or go to, and Grealish, he's done well for England. Like I can think of the assists that he's got at Euros, the goals that he scored at the World Cup. But I feel like in Grealish and Rashford, you've got 2 very good options on the left wing. So I don't feel like it's a position we need to worry about too much. Those 2 are kind of interchangeable. Right wing Saka, that's done deal, and striker Kane. So I feel like the only kind of points of contention is that midfield spot. I mean, what's going to be the thing is we all want Southgate to play attacking football, and I think we all are in agreement that he should. Well, maybe we're not. Like maybe people are a bit more sensible than me and you. But I would tend to go brave. I would say Rice is one of the best players in the world in his position, and if we put a Bellingham alongside him, who is that box of energy who can go up and down, do you think there's going to be too much danger? Well, we know what he's going to do. He's going to play Phillips, but What do you think in terms of that midfield three?
Well, I kind of disagree with you on Rice. I'm not his biggest fan. Let's just say.
Really?
Yeah, for me, there's just something missing there. Like, I think it's because he's a good player. I feel like most of his good work comes maybe off the ball. He's more like a destroyer in midfield. See, with me, I like my Rodri type.
Yeah.
A controller, like I said earlier. Um, I wouldn't trust him. I think we've tried him as a kind of lone six before. Didn't quite work. So I can see why Southgate is kind of reluctant to play with like two eights. But yeah, the midfield three is just. I think we should take it game by game and depending on the opponent. Like if we're playing, I don't know, Australia, for example, definitely play two midfielders more advanced with Rice. But yeah, I think it is a difficult one. Like Rice, I just don't know. I don't know what it is. I just feel like there's just something not quite there with him. Um, but yeah, I think also something that could happen is maybe Trent in midfield as well, alongside Rice. You know, we haven't really spoken about that. That could be an option. But yeah, I don't know what you think.
I think it's a good point that you make about it depends who we're playing. I feel like if we are sort of in the group stages and we play a team that aren't, one of the favourites to win it, I think it's a good idea to kind of maybe try out an attacking midfield three with the likes of Foden and Bellingham and Maddison and maybe Trent if he's there. But what I want to see, and I don't mind him starting defensively against a France or a Spain or an Italy or Germany or someone like that. I really don't mind that. But what I do want to see is the in-game substitutions to not be too cautious and to be made efficiently, quickly, and realizing that when the game's getting away from you or when you need to put a game to bed, which is historically what we haven't seen with Southgate in the past, kind of dilly-dallies and he lets the game get away from him and then we're 2-1 down and then we're conceding goals and we're not putting the game to bed when we should be putting the game to bed. That's what I'd like to see. It kind of leads into the next segment. We'll spend the last kind of 10 minutes chatting about the tournament itself. I think it's safe to say England will be amongst the firm favourites to win the tournament with our qualification campaign, with how well we did at the last World Cup, getting to the Euros final in 2020. How do you rate our chances? I think that's the question I want to ask. How do you rate our chances in Germany?
I think I'm feeling really optimistic about it. I really think we're going to win the competition.
This is dangerous, Nile.
Why won't we? I know there's obviously some great footballing nations out there. France do worry me, but I feel like this is just this is our time. We've got Kane who's at his peak. We've got Bellingham who's performing incredibly well. Rashford, Saka. Our team's a joke. The depth's a joke. If we don't win a tournament next summer, I don't think we ever will. I think Kane also, I think he's going to be massive for us. Obviously, he's the captain, he's our best player. But he's also kind of got something to prove after what happened in the World Cup. I think, I feel like there's something, he's going to have that kind of fire in him that's just going to take us all the way. I really do feel optimistic. We're probably going to get knocked out by I don't know, Luxembourg or something. But no, I'm feeling really optimistic. Obviously, there's some other nations, France. Obviously, it's in Germany as well, so they'll be right up for it. But yeah, I think I really do think we go in as favourites.
The thing is, I would love to agree with you, and I think we definitely. If I were to pick sort of four teams that I think have very good chance of winning it, England are definitely in that top four, maybe in the top two. But I feel like the thing is with all these international teams, I think Spain will be out there with a point to prove. On paper, they've got one of the best squads in the competition. They went out of the last World Cup against Morocco, and it was just a little bit like they probably deserved to win that game. But I feel like it was kind of Morocco's tournament. Germany, obviously Hansi Flick's gone now. They've brought in Nagelsmann. They actually beat France. I don't know how they got on in their internationals this time around, but they beat France in their last one in his first game. Again, you look at their squad on paper, it's one of the best in the competition. Italy, I'm not really too worried about Italy, to be honest. I feel like they've got a long way to go. The team that we beat last night wasn't the best Italy team I've seen in a while. But I feel like in terms of the runs that we've had to get to the places where we've gone in recent times, in Russia in 2018 and then the Euros and then Qatar, we've had to get through relatively easy runs to those points. And this is the criticism that gets levelled at Southgate. And you ask me what's holding us back. And I hate to be the guy that bashes Southgate, but like, this is the one thing that's been levelled at Southgate, is that when we've come up against teams that maybe we shouldn't be, and maybe it's a bit more of a level playing field, we always have lost. And while Southgate isn't the only reason for us losing that, he is a big one in terms of the inaction in games, his in-game substitutions. I feel like against Croatia, we had them under the cosh. We should have made subs. We didn't. They score. We all know the story. Against Italy, we scored early. Should have made changes when they were getting back into the game. We didn't. They scored. They win on penalties. In France, I don't actually give Southgate too much of the stick, because I feel like with the way that game was going, I don't know if I would have made changes, but like, I'm not the England manager, so it doesn't matter. But I feel like with the way that game was going, I don't put too much blame on Southgate for France. And like you said, like I think France are clear favourites for me. With the players that they have, in terms of their defensive line, they've got like 4 world-class centre-halves in there. And up top, they've got no problems at all. So I feel like, I don't know if we're the best team in the tournament. I feel like if we can get through without having to play France, I feel like we might win. But I don't know. This is Southgate's last dance. This is it. I feel like he has to win. And it sounds horribly entitled to say that, but for me, with the squad that he has and everything's in his favour, like we constantly hear pundits talking about how cohesive the group is at the moment, how when back in the day the thing that held behind the golden generation was that they go out to England training, they'd all been competing at club level and they wouldn't get on, whereas this time, and this has been like this since kind of Russia, they all seem to get on, they all love going over with England, and they are some of the best players in the world. We mentioned it earlier, there's maybe a couple of positions in that team where we don't have world-class players. So I feel like if there is a time for England to win a competition, it is this year. Next year, sorry.
No, 100% agree with you. And I also find it funny when people say we're never going to win anything with Southgate. We literally got to a final with Southgate. If you get to a final, you can win a final. That's how I think of it. You know, football's a game of fine margins. If things panned out slightly differently, you know, if I don't know, I don't even remember the Italy goals. I've blocked out of my mind, but it's fine margins, right? Yes, I think the substitutions could be a bit better, maybe tactically, but you know, you learn from it, and I think he has done. I think he's brought in a new coach as well. Hopefully, that might change things a little bit. So yeah, let's see. I'm excited.
Yeah, I feel, and I don't like bashing Gareth Southgate because he has given us like some of the best memories in recent years. I think of that Germany game at the Euros, like that was unbelievable. The Denmark game as well. The Russia just as a tournament was fantastic. Even in Qatar, we had a fair like dose of good memory. So I don't like bashing him because he seems like a nice bloke. But I hope to God that I'm wrong. I hope to God. I just feel like, you know, when you can see in a manager that's ruthless, like someone who's just a born winner. I just don't know if he has that in him, and his credentials in past jobs. The reason he's got the England job is because he worked within the youth setup, and I don't know if he's that guy. And I want him to be that guy, and I want myself to be proved wrong, and I want us to go and win the Euros. But I just don't know. And I really, really hope that I'm proved wrong.
I think he will be.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that would be a good place to wrap up the England chat. We've gone on for about 40 minutes now. Just before we wrap up today, folks, earlier I spoke to Joe from the Burnley fan channel Turfcast to get his take on Saturday's game at the G-Tech. Nice one, Joe. Thanks for coming on, mate. Massively appreciated. I guess my first question to you, which I think that you kind of discussed on your podcast already, is what have you made of Burnley's start to this season?
Well, after 8 games, first of all, let's just go back to last season. Like, we blew the Championship away, and I came into this season pretty confident that we would be okay in terms of a relegation battle. But after 8 games, I expected us to be not in the situation that we're in, where we've only we've only won 1 game, and we've been battered on like 3 occasions. So I didn't expect us to be in this position after 8 games. But when you look at the teams that we've played, I think you can look at that and think, yeah, fair enough. I understand why we're in that position. So yeah, it's been a slow start and it's been a tough start. And a harsh reality to the new lads, because yes, Burnley have been in the Premier League before, and the fans are wise to it, and and what it takes to survive in there. But a lot of these players aren't; they're all young lads. So I think a lot, as is Vincent Kompany in terms of a manager, he's a young manager. So I think a lot of the young lads are learning the trade. So it's been a bit of a awakening with the starts of the season that we've had. But I'm beating this drum of let's just all stop panicking. And remember that we've played, Tottenham, who are currently top or joint top, Man City, who are Man City, Villa, who have started very well this season, Chelsea, who admittedly have been poor, but they've still got good players. Same with Man United, and teams like that. So, within the greatest of respects, we've got now 4 games where it's more teams that are going to be in and around us, and you can judge us on that. So that's my thing, like judge us after Brentford, Bournemouth, Palace and Everton, you know what I mean? Then we've played 2 teams that are probably going to be in and around us this season, in Luton and Forest, both away from home, got 4 points out of them. So I still think we'll be okay. I just might have reined it in a little bit with the confidence.
Yeah, no, I think definitely with that, I was kind of doing some prep before this, looking at the fixtures. I didn't realise quite how bad you've actually had the start of the season, in terms of whoever made that fixture list really must not be a Burnley fan, considering
had it in for us, mate.
I know.
100% had it in for us.
I know. We've talked about it on our last podcast. It's a pretty big game for us, considering our kind of start to the season, as I imagine it will be for you. You kind of just mentioned it with these next three games you've got. Should we lose on Saturday, kind of puts us right amongst it in terms of the early season kind of backmarkers. Is there a feeling amongst Burnley fans that this is a fairly big game, considering from both of our perspectives, if we want to kind of stay in this league, these are the kind of games that you want to be taking points from?
100%, and I don't mean it with any disrespect to Brentford, but it's not a case of we should be beating Brentford, because of course we know we have no right to beat Brentford. Brentford are in the 3rd season in the Premier League now. He did very well last season, and I looked at Brentford at the start of the season and thought Brentford are a safe pair of hands. They'll probably finish somewhere between 9th and 12th, something like that. You start to the season, obviously you've had to adapt to life without Ivan. You've got a few injuries, so I think that's part of the reason why you've had a slower start. I think you've got 3 points more than us, but that's from 3 draws. So I think you're a little bit more difficult to beat, but you've only won 1 match. I do think you'll be in and around, not the relegation battle, but always sort of like, Brentford could be dragged into it, but then you won't do. Yeah, we are looking at it as a big game, looking at it as the next 3 or 4. We've got Everton as well, but that's in the Carabao Cup. But we've got yourselves, Bournemouth, Everton, and then Palace. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that we come away from 4 wins with that. And if we do, things are going to look a lot brighter. My only concern is the next 2, well, the next 3 if you include the Everton one. They're all away from home, so I would have liked just one of them to be at home. Because at that point, then after the Bournemouth game, yes, we'll have played some more teams in and around us, but every single team would have played that's going to be in and around us at the end of the season, or teams that we think will be, have all been away from home. Forest, Luton, then Brentford and Bournemouth. So again, it's not still going to be difficult, because that's what I keep saying. The sentence I keep using is it's difficult to gauge where we're at with the teams that we've played. It's still going to be a little bit difficult because of the teams that are in and around us we've played away from home, but we got a point at Forest. We won at Luton. Struggled to win at Luton, admittedly, with that second half. But over the course of the game, I do think we were the better side. But yeah, we're looking at this one and the next few as important. And I've said to a lot of Burnley fans, right, let's not panic. Judge us after that Palace game and see where we're at. Judge us at the end of November. Then we'll have a clearer picture of where we are.
I mean, I think the clear picture is already kind of there. You kind of mentioned it already, how you've played Forest and Luton both away from home, and you got 4 points from those games. Yeah. Having said that, are Burnley fans kind of coming into this game with any more confidence, knowing you've got that record? I mean, to be honest, we've spoken about it on our podcast. I'm weirdly, and I never thought I'd say this, but weirdly, I'm expecting Burnley to come to Brentford and have most of the ball and have us under the cosh for a lot of the game. I'm really not that confident going into this one. I'm sure most of my mates aren't either, considering our recent form. But are you? Is the sort of, because you're off the back of that negative result against Chelsea, is there any kind of confidence going into this game thinking, do you know what, we can roll them over?
You know what, I am quietly confident it will, at the very minimum, be a close game. And by close game, I don't mean 0-0, 1-0, something like that. I mean two teams going at each other that will be of similar qualities. My worry is you're good at creating chances and you've got some good forwards. So if you carry on in that vein, you may hurt us because our defence hasn't been great. But in terms of confidence among the fans, I think at the minute, most of the fans, it's actually quite low because it's, we've got into the season thinking, I mean, I went on to other shows saying at the start of the season, Burnley will be okay, we'll finish between 11th and 14th. Like I said, I've reined that in a little bit now. But I think a lot of fans were expecting a struggle, but then this start of the season's happened and they're thinking, oh, well, we're definitely going down, Kompany's making mistakes, which he is. But he's an intelligent man, is Vincent Kompany. I think he'll learn from him. I think we'll come good and I do think we'll stay up. But yeah, I think the confidence among the fans is actually quite low. I'm expecting a good game. I'm expecting two teams of decent quality to go at each other. You said that we'll probably have most of the ball and put you under the cosh a lot. We'll try and have most of the ball. I'm not sure if we'll manage to put you under the cosh a lot. We tend to be at the minute like a 45-minute team. So we'll play very well for 45 minutes. We might be the first half, we might be the second half. I don't know which one it's going to be yet. But Luton, for example, we absolutely battered him in that first half. Battered him. And it should have been 3-4-0 on the balance of play, but we didn't have three clear-cut chances, for example. Luton came out in the second half and just absolutely battered us. And then they got that goal in the 82nd minute. I was thinking, here we go. We're going to end up losing this or drawing it, and then it's going to be another meltdown. But thankfully, we scored again straight away. We have got the quality to hurt you, but I think you've got the quality to hurt us as well. So I think it could be a high-scoring game.
Yeah, so you mentioned Kompany as well. Just more like Burnley, bigger picture. I've watched you a few times this season, and he seems quite reluctant to change the playing style. Obviously, it did so well for you in the Championship last season. Could you envision a situation where things start to turn sour if the points don't come with the way that you're playing? I know Thomas Frank has been quite adept in kind of changing his playing style since Brentford have come up to the Premier League. We kind of either can be a counter-attacking team, whereas this season we've started to have the ball a bit more, but he kind of switches his formation depending on who we're playing. Whereas I think Kompany so far, he's kind of been like, this is what we're going to do, and we're not probably going to change. What would you reckon?
It depends. I'm not sure turning sour. I'm not sure it would turn sour, but there's a few rumblings already of this gung-ho football's never going to work in this league and stuff like that. I mean, it's never going to work against City and Chelsea and United and them sort of teams. But we always said at the start of the season is I expect us to get a few batterings, but I expect us to batter some teams as well. So far, 50% of that's been correct. If the other 50% of that does start to come to fruition, then I think it will calm down a little bit. But of course, if we go to the G-Tech on Saturday and get turned over 4-1, and then go down to the Vitality the week after and get turned over 3-0, then I can imagine there being a few rumblings. I'm not sure anyone of sound mind will start calling for his head. I would like to think that even if we got relegated, we'd stand by him like we did with Dyche all them years ago, because I think with clubs like ours, both Burnley and Brentford and some of the other clubs in the league, like your Lutons and your Bournemouths, basically the smaller clubs, you need to have like a long-term vision, and I think Kompany's our long-term vision, and we've brought in a lot of youngsters, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of exciting young talent, and a lot of these will sell on for profit, and that's what we need to do. I remember once talking to a Newcastle fan, this is before the takeover, and I was saying he's young, this lad, but we'll sell him on for profit, and he was like, how are you thinking like that? How are you not thinking he's not good enough now? It's like, you just have to as a smaller club. It's just we can't just throw millions around. So the signs are there that this is a good long-term project. Hopefully the shorter term results pick up, but I think now a lot of fans have gone from, including myself, 11th to 14th. We'll surprise a few people to, all right, let's just stay up. I'll take 17th right now. But I still think we finished 17th. Looking at the other teams that come up, I know there's been a lot of noise recently about these are the three worst teams to ever come up. I think that's a bit harsh when you look at who we've played and who you look at Luton have played. Don't get me wrong, I do think Luton are quite poor, and I do think they'll fall. Sheffield United are dreadful, by the way. But I think we'll be okay. Like I said, judges at the end of November, and especially around Christmas time, and I think we'll have pulled away a little bit from the danger at that point.
Yeah, I think those comments definitely harsh, especially considering how the winning margin you had in the Championship last year. On that comment from the Newcastle fan, it always amazes me the ignorance of top six fans when they've got fucking billionaire owners and just say what they want and think it's all right. A couple of players that have caught my eye. This last question for you, Joe. Lyle Foster up top's been really good. I've watched him a couple of times. Also, I watched the Luton game. Amdouni he looked a proper player. Honestly, in that first half, he should have had a couple of goals if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
Are we thinking they're going to start on Saturday? Because I know he didn't start against Chelsea. Amdouni didn't.
Yeah, Foster 100%, unless he's picked up a niggle that I'm not aware of, will start. I'm doing it. Like, yes, he looks a player. He keeps the ball so well, like really well. And I like him in that 10 role, just behind Foster, because we kind of play like a 4-2-3-1 with the two holding midfielders, sort of like 4-4 was like a front four, as I call it, with somebody in the number 10. I'm doing his start of the season in that number 10 and was doing really well in it. Got a goal against Forest. Did really well, but then his form dropped off a little bit, and then we put Sander Berg in that number 10, who looks really good in that number 10 actually, and we've tried Aaron Ramsey in that number 10, who looked brilliant. He's another young exciting player that we've got, and then Company kind of put Amdouni out on the right, or was it on the left? I can't remember, but one of the two, and it just didn't really work for him. It just didn't really work out there, and I think at the minute he's a little bit out of form, although he did get a goal for Switzerland the other night. So it'd be interesting to see what we do with Amdouni. I would suspect my team would personally, I would not put Amdouni in this game just because of how his form's been at the minute. But if I was going to put him in this game, I'd put him in the number 10 role. Don't waste him outright. But yeah, Foster's been brilliant. It's actually weird with Foster. Like he came in January last season, and he didn't look great in the Championship. There were moments where I was like, there's a player there, and I was trying to tell the fans, well, not tell them, I'm not like the voice of the fans, but trying to debate with the fans, like, there's a player there, you can see a player. But a lot of fans were like, I'm not having it, he's useless, he will be useless in Premier League. And I don't know why, but for whatever reason, maybe it's because he's had a pre-season with us, or he spoke, to be fair, to a podcast, a South African podcast in the summer about how he came to Burnley in January. Well, I think he lives in Manchester, about how he came to Burnley and the northwest in January. The weather was cold, all that sort of stuff, and he didn't really like it. He said he felt like he was feeling a bit depressed and stuff like that. So after a summer with Company and stuff like that, and the nice Pennine sunshine and all the hills surrounding Burnley, he's probably thought, you know what, it's all right, this place, and he's kicked on. Like, he went clean through against Luton, and I don't know what it was, but I was just adamant he was scoring. There was nothing telling me at that moment he wasn't scoring. And if he gets some chances on Saturday, we'll put them in the back of it. And that's, you mentioned there, Amdouni, that's the difference between the two. Like, yes, Foster's an out-and-out striker, but Amdouni had a couple of chances against Luton. I think he had one against... can't remember whoever we played either side of Luton. I'm not remember exactly off the top of my head, but he missed one there as well. Whereas Foster probably scores all of them. So for me, I'd have Amdouni on the bench, but if he's not on the bench, get him in that 10 role behind Foster, because they do link up very well together.
Right, yeah, no, I think definitely Foster with his goal scoring form might have a bit of fun against us. We're very low on confidence at the moment, and Ethan Pinnock might be out for us, which is not good because he's been one of our star players this season. We've still not got Ben Mee. Ben Mee's still,
I agree with that. I like Pinnock, and if you do hear anything, I asked another Brentford podcaster this earlier today. But if you do hear anything on Pinnock, please let me know. He's in my dream team, and it's a draft team. It's not like I could just chop and change it as I want. Pinnock's in my dream team, so like if Pinnock's injured, I need to know. I might shoehorn Ben Mee in if someone else hasn't got him, but that's one of the reasons why I'm coming down actually on Saturday. It's going to be a good game. It's an entertaining game. My partner's at work, so I've got my little boy in me. I thought, sorry, I might as well go to Brentford, and I want to see Ben Mee. I'm really looking forward to seeing Ben Mee again. I hope he gets he will get a brilliant reception from the Burnley fans, but I hope he's playing. It'll be great to see him again. It's weird, like I kind of hope he is playing because I want to see him, but I kind of hope he isn't because it'd be beneficial for us if he's not on the pitch. But yeah, legend is Ben Mee, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him on Saturday.
The Ealing Road podcast will be back next week to discuss that Burnley result and also look ahead to a trip to Stamford Bridge that is next up. Before we leave, guys, remember, if you haven't listened to the podcast before, please do subscribe to our YouTube and Spotify channels. Leave a rating as well, and also give us a follow on our socials. That's at the Ealing Road on Twitter and at Ealing Road Pod on Instagram. Now, bit of a different one today. I'm a little bit gutted that we didn't actually get to talk about Brentford players, but with Rico Henry's injury and also, Ivan Toney could be off in January, so we couldn't really put a Brentford spin on this England episode, but it has been fun.
Yeah, cool. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Nice one.